Hello and welcome. I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top headlines this hour. US President Donald Trump says the United States could support another major strike on Iran if it rebuilds missile or nuclear programs, and warns Hamas of severe consequences if it does not disarm. Speaking alongside Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, he suggests Tehran may be trying to restore its weapons capabilities. Meanwhile, a senior advisor to Iran's supreme leader warns that any aggression against the country will face an immediate, harsh response after Donald Trump threatens to eradicate any nuclear rebuilding. He says Iran's missile and defense capabilities are not containable and will be used if provoked. President Trump also says the United States has destroyed a docking area used for alleged Venezuelan drug-running boats, calling it a major strike in the anti-narcotics campaign. He says the blast took out boats and the loading area, but declines to provide details on the location or the operation. Taiwan President Lai Ching-te vows not to escalate, provoke, or raise conflict with China as Beijing continues a second day of live-fire drills around the island. He says Taiwan will act responsibly while monitoring China's extensive military activity. South Korea urges peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait as China conducts large-scale military drills around the island. Seoul says it hopes cross-strait relations develop peacefully through dialogue and cooperation. China launches rockets around Taiwan as the second day of live-fire drills begin, with footage showing rockets firing from the coast. Taiwan says it detects a surge in military activity, including 130 aircraft and multiple Navy and government vessels. The Saudi-led coalition says it launches a limited airstrike on Yemen's Mukalla port, targeting what it calls foreign military support for southern separatists. The strikes come amid escalating tensions between the UAE-backed STC forces and Saudi-supported government troops. Bangladesh's former Prime Minister Khaleda Zia dies at aged 80, a Bangladesh National Party has said. The party announces she passed away earlier on Tuesday and asks supporters to pray for her. Now we start with some breaking news coming out of the Middle East. And Yemen has declared a state of emergency after separatist forces seized key territory, escalating the conflict in the region. This comes as Saudi Arabia launched airstrikes on the port city of Mukalla, targeting a shipment of weapons it claims was sent by the UAE to a separatist group. The attack has further strained relations between Saudi Arabia and the Southern Transitional Council, which is backed by the United Arab Emirates. This escalation also follows Yemen's decision to cancel a defense pact with the UAE, heightening tensions in an already volatile region. We'll continue to bring you all the news coming out of that developing situation as soon as we get it. But now over to Europe. And US President Donald Trump has criticized an alleged Ukrainian drone attack on Russian President Vladimir Putin's residence, calling it not the right time. Trump expressed anger over the incident, which Kyiv denies. He warned that it was a delicate period in the ongoing conflict and stressed that such actions could undermine diplomatic efforts to end the war. Listen in to what the US President had to say on the issue.
Heard about it this morning. You know who told me about it? President Putin told me about it. Early in the morning he said he was attacked. It's no good. It's no good. Don't forget, you know, the Tomahawks. I stopped the Tomahawks. I didn't want that. Because we're talking about, you know, it's a delicate period of time. This is not the right time. It's one thing to be offensive, because they were offensive. It's another thing to attack his house. It's not the right time to do any of that, and can't do it. And I learned about it from President Putin today. I was very...
However, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky accused Russia of using the attack allegations to sabotage peace talks, calling the story a fabrication aimed at justifying further aggression. Joining us now is Glenn Grant, the ex-advisor to the Defence Minister of Ukraine. He joins us live from Riga in Latvia. Glenn, it is always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much for joining us on this story in particular. Of course, this comes just a day after Volodymyr Zelensky and Donald Trump are all smiles seemingly in the White House. No serious significant breakthrough, however, of course, security guarantees were at the top of the roster. However, today we have Donald Trump reacting to something that Vladimir Putin has directly told him. Is the United States verifying Russia's claim, do you think, or is Washington simply reacting to what Vladimir Putin tells the US president directly?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious that this is just an FSB trick. There is no value in Ukraine trying to attack Valdai, which is Putin's home, primarily because Putin wasn't there. That's the first thing, and they're able to track where he is most of the time. And the secondly, because Valdai is probably the most heavily fortified air defense zone in the world, this is just typical of Putin to readjust the whole dialogue by telling Trump something, and Trump clearly believes Putin before he believes his own team. They won't find any evidence of an attack because there wasn't one. So I think that Putin has done it again, you might say, and upset everything that Zelensky has tried to do.
Glenn, and Moscow, apologies, Ukraine warns that Moscow might use this as justification for harsher strikes and also, of course, dragging out diplomacy further after the gains made yesterday. If Russia escalates citing this attack, do you think Washington holds Moscow responsible in the circumstances under Donald Trump?
No, I don't think they will. I mean, I think what Trump will say is that, you deserve this because you attacked Putin. I mean, Trump just does not see this war in the same way that everybody else does. I mean, he is clearly smitten with Putin and follows what Putin says, believes what Putin says above his own intelligence agencies, as you will remember he did in his first term after the Helsinki meeting. So I don't think it'll make any difference. I think that Ukraine has just got to keep plugging away and trying to keep keep Trump happy, so that they still get the intelligence support and weapons that they need.
Gone so far as the Russian foreign minister saying that Moscow will now revise its negotiating position. What does that mean? Do you think there's going to be further demands from Moscow when it comes to territory, or what could this what could you interpret these?
Yeah, it's a very good question, actually. I mean, I don't think they'll negotiate. They'll change their demands at all. I mean, their demands have always been for total compliance from Ukraine, for Ukraine to give in and stop fighting. And I don't think they can go much further than that, other than claiming that they're going to take over the whole of Ukraine, which, of course, at current rates, they can't do. They just can't move fast enough, and the army's not good enough. So I think we're just going to see more of the same, probably another couple of large attacks in the next couple of weeks, like they've done on Kiev recently and Odessa. And they'll just keep plugging away on the front line, getting closer and closer to cities like Zaporizhzhia, where they are actually right close to the outskirts now.
Stay with us as we move on to our next story, and we head to the United States. And US President Donald Trump has renewed his threat to sue Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, accusing him of gross incompetence over renovation work at the Fed's Washington headquarters. Speaking to reporters in Florida, Trump said Powell should resign and repeated that he would love to fire him, even as markets remain sensitive to any move against the central bank's independence. Trump also confirmed that he will announce his choice for the next Federal Reserve chair sometime in January, though he stopped short of naming a preferred candidate. National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett is widely seen as the frontrunner, with former Fed Governor Kevin Warsh and others also under consideration. Powell's term as chair ends in May 2026. His board term runs until 2028, limiting Trump's ability to immediately reshape the Fed's leadership. Let's listen in.
Thinking about bringing a suit against Powell for incompetence, because think of it, these aren't outstanding buildings, these are small buildings. He's at $4 billion more. It's going to end up costing more than $4 billion. $4 billion. It's the highest price of construction. Again, Democrats, highest price of construction per square foot in the history of the world. There's never been. Gorgeous monuments are built for a much smaller price. So we're thinking about bringing a gross incompetence, what's called gross incompetence lawsuit. It's gross incompetence against Powell. And it was his baby. And the guy's just incompetent. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. He's just a very incompetent man. But we're going to probably bring a lawsuit against him.
Now, the US Federal Reserve, of course, independent from the United States executive branch. Glenn, how damaging are these public threats to sue or fire the Fed chair for the perception of US central bank independence? Does this erode global trust in US economic governance?
Funnily enough, it may actually have the reverse effect, because if it's Trump that's actually saying things, then I think that Powell, who's been around in the Federal Reserve since 2011 or 2012, is on pretty solid ground. He's not a man to be shaken easily. And Trump wants to drop the interest rates even down to as low as 1%, and Powell is stubbornly holding out against Trump. And I think they're 3.75 or 3.5 at the moment, and he doesn't want to lower it, because to lower too quickly could fuel inflation, and then that messes up the job market. It messes up prices in the shops and everything else. So he's fighting against Trump quite hard. But you have to remember, Trump put him into the job, and Biden kept him because he was doing a good job. As for the cost of the renovation, I have no idea. I mean, it's not $4 billion, that's for sure. That's a Trump made-up figure, which he usually does, and it's probably somewhere between 2.5. But even that's high in my mind. So maybe there's some corruption there. I don't know. But Trump is obviously clear that he wants a new man, and he'll do anything he can now, including illegally moving him if he has to, I suspect.
Yes, indeed. Glenn Grant, thank you very much for joining us. As always, it is a pleasure for you having you on the programme. We now move on, and China has launched missiles and deployed dozens of fighter jets and naval vessels around Taiwan, extending live-fire military drills aimed at simulating a blockade of the island's key ports and attacks on maritime targets. The two-day exercises, dubbed Justice Mission 2025, began on Monday and were condemned by Taiwan as highly provocative and reckless. Beijing claims Taiwan as part of its territory and has not ruled out using force to assert control. China said the drills involved destroyers, frigates, fighters and bombers rehearsing sea-air coordination, simulated strikes and blockade operations. State media reported a focus on sealing off major ports, including Keelung and Koyosiang. Taiwan said the exercises disrupted international shipping and aviation, forcing flight cancellations and delays. Its defense ministry reported detecting 130 Chinese aircraft and multiple naval vessels near the island within 24 hours. President Lai Ching-te said Taiwan would not escalate tensions while the United States and regional allies continued to voice concern. Beijing insisted the drills were a warning against Taiwan independence, as ordinary Taiwanese reacted with calm, saying they were used to such displays of force. Let's listen in to Taiwan's Director of General European Affairs.
外交部驻及对中政策跨国议会联盟 IPEC 在12月30日发布声明，谴责中国共产党正企图将武力恐吓常态化，并积极为潜在冲突做准备，不仅大幅增加误判风险，破坏两岸和平，更威胁印太和平与全球繁荣。外交部重申，维护台海现状已经是国际共识，并符合各方重要利益。但中国仍执意以军事挑衅、以军事演训等手段恐吓台湾及周边国家，此举不但挑战联合国宪章有关不得使用威胁或武力的原则，也违反国际规范。
Of course, this comes as China amps up its drills in the Taiwan Strait. And meanwhile, China has issued a sharp warning to the United States over arms sales to Taiwan. Beijing's top diplomat Wang Yi said China would forcefully counter what he called continuous provocations, accusing Washington of fueling tensions through large-scale weapons transfers to Taipei. Let's listen in.
针对台独势力的不断挑衅，以及美国大规模对台售武，我们当然要坚决反对，有力反制。今年是台湾回归祖国80周年，实现祖国完全统一，是在依法维护国家的主权和领土完整，是我们必须完成的历史。
Joining us now is Dr. Bonnie Yoshi Liao, an assistant professor of diplomacy and international relations at Tamkang University in Taiwan. Thank you very much for joining us here on NewsX World. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. How credible, according to you, is China's claim that these exercises are meant to deter external deterrence rather than signal aggressive intentions? And how do you think is Taiwan's high-pressure posture and rapid response contributing to it? Do you think things could escalate further here?
China's claim is only partially credible, and that's important. Yes, Beijing often frames these drills as a response to the external interference, especially the U.S. arms sales. But the scale, frequency, and the scenarios we're seeing, simulated encirclement and blockade, joint operations go far beyond simple signaling. That looks less like deterrence messaging and more like sustained pressure and operational rehearsal. Taiwan's high alert posture, on the other hand, is defensive and restrained. Rapid response is about preventing surprise and avoid panic. When responses are disciplined and predictable, they actually reduce the risk of miscalculation. And the real escalation risk doesn't come from Taiwan reacting. It comes from military drills becoming normalized, where risky behavior feels routine. That's how accidents happen, and accidents are how crises start.
Indeed, and the Taiwanese foreign minister has slammed China's drills as a violation of international norms. Meanwhile, Trump has said that he is not worried by China's simulated attack on Taiwan. Should the United States be doing more to defuse the situation?
These two messages serve different but complementary purposes. Taiwan is right to call out these drills as violations of international norms. Large-scale simulated attacks around a neighboring democracy undermine stability and the status quo in the Taiwan Strait. At the same time, a U.S. president signaling calm is often about crisis management, avoiding overreaction and keeping escalation under control. The key question isn't whether the U.S. should sound tougher, but whether it should remain consistent and predictable. Diffusing tension means maintaining deterrence, coordinating closely with allies like Japan, and keeping communication channels open, while making clear that coercion will not change outcomes. Quiet stability building measures often matter more than loud statements.
Indeed, and Beijing's top diplomat said that China would forcefully counter large-scale US weapons sales to Taiwan. What does forcefully counter really mean? Diplomatic pressure, sanctions, or military action? And also, what does it say about the current status of US and China relations?
Forcefully counter is a phrase designed to sound strong while staying flexible. In practice, it usually means diplomatic protest, symbolic sanctions against defense firms, economic pressure, and increased military signaling, such as more drills. Direct military action against the US would be a major escalation and remains highly unlikely. What this tells us about US China relations is that they're in a phase of managed competition. There is still dialogue and limited cooperation in some areas, but Taiwan is the most sensitive fault line. Whenever Taiwan is involved, cooperation becomes fragile, pressure quickly overrides trust, and deterrence takes priority over diplomacy. That's the reality of the current relationship. So Taiwan's steady readiness supports stability. It's coercive military pressure that increases risk.
Dr. Bonnie Yoshi, thank you very much for joining us here on NewsX World. It's a pleasure to have you on the program. We now move on, and in Iran, President Masoud Pezeshkian has called on the government to listen to the legitimate demands of protesters after 2 days of demonstrations in Tehran. Shopkeepers took to the streets to protest against worsening economic conditions. Pezeshkian, speaking through state media, urged the Interior Minister to engage in dialogue with protest leaders and address their concerns. He emphasized the government's responsibility to resolve the economic challenges faced by the public. The protests highlight growing dissatisfaction over inflation and the rising cost of living in the country, putting pressure on the leadership to act swiftly. SoftBank Group has agreed to acquire digital infrastructure investor Digital Bridge Group in a deal valued at about $4 billion as the Japanese conglomerate sharpens its focus on artificial intelligence and the infrastructure that powers it. Under the agreement, SoftBank will pay $16 per share, a 15% premium to Digital Bridge's last closing price, valuing the company at roughly $2.92 billion. The transaction is expected to close in the second half of next year. The announcement lifted Digital Bridge's shares nearly 10% on Monday, extending gains after reports earlier this month first revealed takeover talks. The acquisition deepens SoftBank founder Masayoshi's son's bet on the massive computing capacity required for AI applications. Digital Bridge specializes in digital infrastructure assets such as data centers, cell towers, fiber networks, and edge computing platforms, with investments including Vantage Data Centers, Zayo, Switch, and Atlas DGE. Originally founded as Colony Capital in 1991, Digital Bridge shifted away from traditional real estate and rebranded in 2021. CEO Mark Ganzi will continue to lead the firm as a separately managed platform. Digital Bridge manages around $108 billion in assets and is also a key investor in the Stargate project alongside OpenAI, Oracle, and MGX, which aims to build large-scale AI computing sites across the United States. That's all that we have time for this hour. Keep watching NewsX World for more international updates.